It's over 9,000!
Welcome, Super Elite Warriors, to Final Forum, a podcast for the discussion of all things Dragon Ball. I am your host, Jelly, an elite recruiting member of the Frieza Force on a mission to find the best warriors from across the galaxy to join the greatest army of all time. And I am joined, as always, by my new recruit co-host.
Can we not do this right now?
We've talked about this, Bekinney.
This is the Bekinney. Look out!
Yeah! It's okay. These little ones don't pose much of a threat, and the big ones, duck, are slow enough that they're easy to dodge. We can multitask this.
Yeah! Well, yeah, but unlike normal multitasking, if we mess up one of these things, we die.
That's the fun part, though. Especially because, since we are delegates of the Frieza Force, if we mess up on either of these things, we die.
You know, this level of thrill-seeking is not healthy. Look left! This goes beyond being an adrenaline junkie, man. You should probably seek professional help.
Every member of the Frieza Force must undergo regular psychic evaluations to ensure they are fit for duty. You and I just had one not that long ago.
And we lied through our teeth about still being fit for service.
I never lie to Lord Frieza. I may not have told the entire truth about all your multiple personalities or clones or whatever we went through, but I didn't lie. Especially about my ability to return to work. Behind you!
Yeah! You know, if this podcast doesn't work out, I'd say you definitely have a career in politics or maybe law.
This podcast will work out. You gotta have faith. And anyway, we're at the ship. Quick, get in!
Whew.
We're not out of the woods just yet, recruit. Get the ship online, skip the startup diagnostics, and let's get out of here.
Well, what if something important was damaged when that plant burst out of the ground? The ship could be damaged, and we could be exploded or sucked into space or any number of terrible things.
And if we take the normal 10 minutes to start up, we will get crushed and possibly digested by a gigantic plant.
Fair point. Hey, did it ever take us 10 minutes to start up the ship before?
Don't worry about before. Live in the now, man.
Speaking of now, the ship is ready to fly. Let's see, hit that button, flip that switch. Now!
And it didn't explode yet, so hang on to something, because here we go! There. We made it, and we didn't even die.
Yet.
That's a rather grim outlook. Listen, why don't you have the ship run a full self-diagnostic? See if anything else broke during all the commotion.
You mean other than the auto-call homing beacon?
Yeah, right. Exactly. Anyway, while you're checking on the ship, let's check in on this week's topic. And this week, we are going to be doing what we do at the end of all of our arcs along the way, and doing a Piccolo Jr. manga versus anime comparison. It's going to be... I have a question about that before we get too deep into this.
Okay.
Did you know? Because we're heading into Z in the relatively near future. I'm telling everyone we're heading into Z, and I have plans for like at least 4 more episodes.
It's a bait and switch
between where we are now and Z. It's very much like it's like Dragon Ball pacing at this point.
Well, we got to get people ready for the long drawn out sequences in between all the action.
But did you know that in more recent years, the Saiyan arc, as it used to be called, which was from the beginning of Z until the end of the Vegeta fight, has been subsected into 2 parts?
Oh, no, I didn't know that. I've only ever known it as the Saiyan arc. What is it now?
It's the Raditz arc, all of 6 episodes.
Nice.
And then the rest.
Okay. So even
the question
even in
would
a meta sense, Vegeta didn't want to be associated with rabbits.
The question would be, do we do that? And I think the answer is no, but because that's going to be what,
it could be fun.
It's going to be what, 3 chapters of the manga?
Well, it'd be fun to do an episode and start it with like, and we're going to be starting the Raditz arc, and then at the end of the episode be like, and that's the end of the Raditz arc.
But yeah, so we do this when we get to the end of all of our sagas. We do some sort of a recap, review, and comparison. Also, I got my Vizbig here. You can guess the number. What do I say when we do all of our manga comparisons? This arc, is entirely capsulated within 1 volume.
Nice.
Yay. Also, this volume, interestingly, or maybe not so interestingly, Volume 5 of OG Dragon Ball is, most of them, if you're talking about the Vizbigs, are 3-in-1s, meaning they have 3 tankobons per...
Yes, I believe that's the correct term.
Per release, meaning there are 3 trade paperbacks, essentially, in one release. OG Dragon Ball is 4. On volume 5 of the Vizbig, instead of being a 3-in-1, it's a 4-in-1. So you get like 1 extra volume for your $1. Now,
that's not bad.
If you're a big Dragon Ball fan and you're going to collect all of the Vizbigs, don't worry, Viz Media has compensated for that, because the final volume of Dragon Ball Z is only 2, and it's the same price also.
Son of a bitch.
So everything's the same price, and at the end of the day, you average getting 3 volumes per, I think it's $19.99.
Well, I mean, at least they're pretty consistent.
Yes. So before we get into that, let's talk a little bit about Goku once again, because I don't know why. No, because he's our main character.
He's the main character?
Yes. This is getting back to the is Goku a flat character discussion. We actually are seeing some depth to his character. This is the character everyone says is a flat arc. He shows a little more depth than people give him credit for throughout this arc specifically. And he has some growth, not just in strength, which he obviously does, but in character. He's no longer 100% impetuous. He is to an extent. He still gets excited by the prospect of a fight, and he wants to push himself alone to test his limits. And that's going to continue, and that's going to be a thing that people are going to, for years, like, that's still a thing. People are like, oh, Goku's such a jerk because he wanted to fight strong people. The whole universe was almost wiped out. But he's a little more level-headed about this drive that he has. He does a better job about understanding that his limits are at least in the realm of his opponent.
Yeah. I also think, just really quick, one of the things that I noticed watching the lead up to this, like with particularly like when Goku met Yajirobe and then they fought one of Piccolo's underlings, like Goku had a lot more bloodlust when he was younger.
Yes.
And it was probably like in response to Krillin passing. Like, don't get me wrong there. Like, there's extenuating circumstances there a little bit, but you can definitely see like it was more about defeating his opponent at that point in time. Whereas now it's, well, I want to beat you, but not because like I want to kill you for something that you did to me. It's like, I just want to beat you to show you that like you're on the wrong path.
Right. And this has very slowly, I mean, we're on Hang on. At the end of this, what are we on? Chapter, I think, 184? No.
Yeah.
It's got to be...
I think.
We're on 194, not 184. That's pretty close.
Yeah. You're only one number off.
So we've had 194 chapters, which is, we're at like 12 pages per chapter. We're at like 2,000 pages. So that's where people think that like there's no growth. It's because it's slow. Because really where I think this idea of Goku being like less bloodlusty kind of started, is he sees Tien go from being his mortal enemy to completely changing his ways.
Yeah.
And so now, he's no longer going all out 100% from the get-go. He's not like, oh, if I punch you and you explode into a billion pieces, it's too bad for you.
He's like, well, that's a win's a win.
He's doing a better job of like feeling his way around problems and understanding the scope and capacity of his enemies before defeating them. He relishes the opportunity to prove himself, and he is more interested in finding out where he stands compared to his opponent and his prior self than he is in saving the world. But he's not trying to kill his enemies. He's trying to measure his own strength. I think that's a big distinction. It's a key element to his character, and it plays in big time with a rival that's about to come up very soon, Vegeta, and their differing outlooks on life and responses to defeat. You're going to see that. It's what those characters are. One character says, I'm trying to measure myself against you and me yesterday, and if I fall short, then that just means I got to try harder. And the other character says, I need to win, and I need to win. And that's all that matters, is that I need to win. And then when he loses, it ruins his life.
Yeah, it's his ego. He puts more value on the win demonstrating his power versus Goku demonstrating his power by being able to take that loss and then improve upon himself.
Right. And Goku follows this idea of measuring himself against himself and his opponents, and not caring so much about the win-loss and more caring about like giving it his all and measuring himself. He follows this so much, no matter what it means, which is why he's always leveling the playing fields for his fights. Like he lets Piccolo punch him after Kami saves him. In the future, he's going to give enemies a chance to flee, a bit of his life energy, or a senzu bean, because he's like, it's all about honor and proving your worth and the worth of your training and not winning. We're going to see very shortly, like he very easily has the upper hand against Nappa. And he's like, all right, that's like, I'm done. Like, you're done.
Yeah, like he does, like the whole bit where like he injures him to the point where he can't fight anymore only comes after Nappa targets somebody other than him. Right.
And even we'll see with Frieza later on, he, as Super Saiyan, when he achieves Super Saiyan, he's basically toying with Frieza. And the whole reason Goku ever toys with an opponent, because he kind of does it a lot, is to show them, I'm this much better than you. And we've talked about this fairly recently, like that idea of like, if a small child is attacking you, you might just put your hand out and let them not hit you, you know? Like,
yeah, exactly.
Have your little temper tantrum, but I could wreck you.
I feel like that's kind of his way of trying to teach his opponents his outlook on life. Because when he's presented with an opponent who is stronger than him, he gets excited because he's like, oh man, this is an opportunity for me to get even better than I was. And I think that's part of him trying to say, look at how much stronger I am than you. Why are you sitting here trying to fight me instead of going off and training and coming back when you're stronger, and then you might actually beat me?
Yeah. And so this mentality that he has, and his incredible endurance, obviously, which his incredible endurance has a lot more to do with recognizing his level and his mentality, his understanding that there is always a higher level and knowing that there's always a higher level and being willing and able to push himself to get to that level. Like, this mentality that he has combined with his innate physical strength allow him to know, okay, even if a guy is kicking the ever-loving crap out of me, that means there is that level there and I can reach it. Are why even when he fails, he sees it as an opportunity to improve and a pathway to get to that higher level rather than an insult or an abject failure.
Yeah, exactly.
And Toriyama wisely unspools the depth of all this over the course of hundreds of chapters of manga and equally hundreds of chapters or hundreds of episodes of anime. Even just in this tournament, we've seen like everyone else unveils some major new power in each fight they have. And that's in no small part because that's like the theme of the tournament. And it's like the literary technique of them having just one fight to show off. Toriyama spoons out Goku's advancements more slowly. He's an adult. That's like the first one. Then he can sense ki extremely well. Like, even when Piccolo walks into the room before anyone else even sees him, he's like, I feel that ki. He can sense attacks without looking. He sees without sight. He sees the truth of Tien's cloning technique. Even, I don't know, without a whole lot of impetus behind that. He's like, oh, this guy is like, each one of these things is a quarter as strong as it used to be.
Yeah.
He can fly. All these new things that he's done and his newfound maturity as a combatant are spooned out over the course of multiple fights. He's not giving away the farm right from the beginning and just betting on his strength alone. He's more calculating in his fights, in all of his fights. And because this happens so gradually, people say he's flat because they think that that's kind of how Goku has always been. Oh, he doesn't beat the guy, but then he does beat the guy by going stronger. Really, when you look at the difference between Goku as he is basically at the end of Dragon Ball versus where he was earlier, is he used to, more or less, always go all out. And it was only when he would come up against an opponent who could handle that all out, like Major Metallotron or Tao Pai Pai, that he would have to do some more training to push himself further beyond to find a new level. Now he is, as we saw in this fight, and especially in the fight against Piccolo, he is, okay, let me hold back a little. And that's where you talked about why Piccolo ultimately doesn't just get up after giving the Senzu Bean and attack Goku, is because we learn at the very end of the fight that Goku's been holding back this entire time. He can fly. Yeah. He has more tricks up his sleeve. And if Goku was going all out the whole time, his fight against Piccolo would have been over even sooner. People think that's flat, but really, if you look at it, there's actually some depth to this character.
Absolutely. And speaking of depth, I mean, with this storyline, we also see over and over again that Goku's compassionate. Beats people up, but he's learned via his travels to show compassion to his enemies, and that as long as he keeps improving and can outpace his foes, he does not need to kill them because he'll always be one step ahead of them. He only ever slowly and occasionally outstrips Piccolo's power in the tournament here. He's not going full out for Piccolo. He's only, like you said, powering up as the moment requires to show Piccolo that he's the stronger fighter, because in the end, I get the feeling that it's not just about who's physically the strongest, but also who's got the proper outlook. As the story has progressed and the rigid connections to Journey of the West get lost and more muddled, Goku becomes something of a stand-in for both Sun Wukong and Xuanzang. When he beats people up, he also befriends them with compassion and emotion and enlightens them on his way.
That's like originally, like in Journey to the West, Xuanzang is the one who's like, "Oh, join us, come be with us." Like
Sun Wukong's the "I'm going to beat it with a stick until it stops moving" type guy.
And as the story progresses here, as Bulma recedes further into the background, because she's the original stand-in for Xuanzang. Right. as she recedes into the background here, Goku kind of becomes both characters.
Yeah. He also remains true to himself, always. His deepest desire is to better himself, and this is why he turns down Kami's offer to become the new Kami. In the upper realm, there are no hardships, no opportunity to improve. Though Goku has fought every imaginable force on Earth and trained with the heretofore unimaginable forces of the upper realm, he believes there may be higher levels for him to achieve, and he can't do anything by becoming a god. His journey will never end.
As much as, and we've talked about GT before, but like as much as I really like the end of GT, I think it has like a very like nice sentimental feeling to it.
Mm-hmm.
In a weird way, it gets like the overall message of Goku and Dragon Ball like 100% wrong. I like Dragon Ball ending in a way that's like, till we see you next time, until the next adventure, until more to come.
Right, because Goku literally cannot sit still.
Right. He's the ultimate embodiment of a shonen hero. There's always a next adventure. There's always a next time. There's
always that next level.
There's no finale. The journey keeps going forever. Shortly after this part, Yu Kondo becomes Goku's editor. That's going to be someone we have to like research for another time, but this is the end of Torishima's direct involvement as Toriyama's editor. That's important to note. Now, how important is going to be, we'll have to like look into Yu Kondo and talk about him a little bit, because I know it's Toriyama's third editor who took over towards the end, and I don't remember the man's name, I apologize, but who took over, I think, towards like the end of the Cell arc, and then was his editor throughout Majin Buu. Toriyama had in later years come out and said that was his favorite editor because he asked the least amount of revisions.
Poor guy was probably going into this going, this is Toriyama. I can't tell him how to do his job.
And that is also why a lot of the complaints about the Majin Buu stuff exist that people have, is that arc was very much just Toriyama being allowed to do kind of whatever he wanted.
I've seen a similar argument made for the original trilogy of Star Wars versus the prequel trilogy that came out early 2000s.
Yeah.
And there was an editor who was married to, oh God, why am I forgetting his name?
George
now
Lucas?
Of all time. Yes, George Lucas. Sorry. I do not remember her name, unfortunately, off the top of my head. But she was married to George Lucas at the time, and she's the one who edited the original trilogy. And so a lot of people are saying the reason why the story on that original trilogy is so tight compared to the prequel trilogy is because she was editor then, and she was not editor for the new stuff. And for the new stuff, George was allowed to kind of just do what he wanted.
I mean, yeah. Also, episodes 4 and 5, or movies number 1 and 2, were not directed by George Lucas. Oh, wait. Yes. I'm sorry. This is dumb. George Lucas did direct the first one, which makes sense, actually. I don't know why I thought George Lucas didn't direct the first one. But I know he didn't direct Empire, which is the one that pretty much everyone says is the best one.
Yeah, Yeah, I'll agree with that.
Just say yes. Just say yes and we'll move on.
Yeah, I'll say that, yeah.
Oh, and that one was directed by Irvin Kershner, actually. But Lucas didn't even write the screenplay for it. The screenplay was written by Kasdan. Richard Marquand actually directed Return of the Jedi, but again, Lucas was more involved in the screenplay. And this is where you get into it. The more unilateral control a certain creative type has, the more like scatterbrained sometimes their creations get. And yes, Lucas certainly seems to fit that bill. Toriyama obviously seems to fit that bill. There's others that don't, like Quentin Tarantino. Tarantino is always the writer-director of all of his movies.
Yeah.
And it doesn't seem to affect, like, that fact doesn't seem to affect his quality.
Agreed.
But certain people need to have someone, even just asking them the question of, like, you sure?
Yeah, or like, what's the motivation for this?
Are you sure?
Hey,
that's
I've noticed a plot hole here.
Yeah. And then that's the other piece of it is, even if they say, like, yeah, that's a plot hole, but, like, don't worry about it, at least there's someone, like, checking you and asking you, because you might say, yeah, that's a plot hole, don't worry about it, and you might also say, oh yeah, that's a plot hole, let's address it. One of the most famous examples of, yeah, it's a plot hole, don't worry about it, that I can think of is Jurassic Park.
Yeah.
In that movie, there's two kind of big plot holes, kind of. One is not so much anymore because of a conversation that Spielberg had with one of his people, and one still exists, kind of. The one that still exists, that people still talk about, is how did the T-Rex, like, break out of the T-Rex paddock and then throw the Jeep over a cliff?
Yeah. Yeah, I was wondering if you were going to bring this up.
Now, that one is one of those that's like, I don't know if someone brought it up to him and he was like, shut up, don't worry about it. But that one also has, like, a weird kind of explanation that still, that, like, is within the movie, basically, which, like, not within the movie, but, like, you could still say, okay, just because he walked out here, he threw them off a cliff that's actually 50 feet to the right.
Yeah.
So there was a cliff there. There wasn't a cliff where he walked out. There was a cliff 50 feet to the right.
Okay.
Now, I don't know if anyone ever mentioned that to Spielberg or whatever, and he was just like, shut up.
It's like, listen, the scene where we've got them hanging over the edge of the cliff, swinging around on a vine, is awesome. Shut up.
But that plot hole still just exists as is, and you have to, like, headcanon your way out of it. The other one is at the end of the movie, when the T-Rex bursts into the visitor center and kills the raptors.
Mm-hmm.
When they were storyboarding it, Spielberg was like, yeah, and then the T-Rex comes in and he kills the raptors. And one of the people in that storyboard meeting was like, where does the T-Rex come in? And he was like, from the right of the frame.
And he's like, no, how does he get into the building?
Yeah. And Spielberg was like, and what they did then, and you can notice if you're, like, paying attention to the movie, is they basically had that visitor center not be finished being built yet.
Mm-hmm.
So there's tarps actually on the back of that building where it's not finished yet. And that's the T-Rex then bursts through these tarps. It's very easy for him. But yes, initially he was like, and then the T-Rex will come in and grab the raptor. And someone was like, yeah, and where does the T-Rex come from? And he was like, from the right. And
I love that that's where his brain went immediately. That's great.
And so you can see how, like, yeah, like, just by having someone to just ask you that question sometimes can tighten up your story. And I guess, I don't know 100%, but I guess Toriyama's third editor kind of didn't always ask him that question, I guess.
That's okay, though. It's still pretty good.
Because that's the other thing is, like, at the end of the day, then, a lot of times, I'll use the Star Wars prequels as an example. You can still feel when things are made by, like, a single person.
Yeah.
And there's still some charm to that then.
Yeah, sure.
Anyways. It's all a very long way of saying, let's look into Toriyama's other editors at some point.
and also a very long way of saying that editors' jobs are actually important.
Yes. So I got some comparison stuff. Very few, but I have some.
All right.
Early in the arc, and I don't remember this happening in the anime, Korin pretty explicitly states, Korin or Karin, again, I don't care so much. I don't know about you, but, like, I don't get hung up on that.
I kind of default to just the English translation of stuff just because that's typically what most people would know, considering who our audience is.
Like, I would have no problem, Korin, whatever, that's what you want. Someone was like, oh my god, it's Korin. I'd be like, yeah, okay, also that's fine.
Yeah.
But he explicitly says only those he deems worthy can meet God. And I just thought, in light of, like, it was like 2, maybe 3 episodes ago, we talked about how Kami's job as Guardian, and whether he should be called Guardian, it's more like he's not the Guardian of Earth, he's more the ambassador or middle management guy.
Yeah.
It just kind of drove that home to me more, of like, oh, so Korin passes you off to Kami, and then Kami passes you off to King Kai.
Yeah.
Like, your achievements have to go up the ladder for people to notice you. Also,
you have to ask to speak to his manager.
Karin has to ask to speak to the manager?
No, you ask. No, see, dealing with Karin is like dealing with the person that's like, that you're talking to on the phone.
Karin.
And then you're like, hey, I would like to speak to your manager, as it's clear you can't handle my problem.
I was going along the lines of Karin, Karen.
Oh, I see what you did there. This is why the whole name thing can be confusing sometimes.
Also, in the manga, in the anime, there's that whole moment where Goku realizes he lost his Nyoibo, or power pole, and he goes back to the site where he fought Piccolo and King Furry. His name is King Furry, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it is.
That's a problem. But King of the Furries, down to GIF.
Whoa, let's not. Oh no.
He says,
I'm not touching that with a 10-foot power pole.
But he interacts with all the people who are like, oh, you're the one who saved the world. And he's like, yeah, but where's my power pole? That doesn't happen in the anime. And that whole situation with him, like, looking for his power pole is much more compressed. It's like a solid half episode in the anime. And it's like a couple of pages in the manga. Also, no lightning storm when Goku's riding up the power pole to the sanctuary.
I was a little disappointed by that, honestly.
Yeah, me too. I like that part. When fighting Popo, I don't remember this from the anime at all. When fighting Popo, there's a panel where, as Goku was like going to punch him, Ozaru is in the background. And it's like Goku's channeling that strength and that power. And that was a thing that happened at the end of the Demon King Piccolo arc. Where as he's punching through him, you get the Ozaru piece of it. I don't remember that from the anime, though.
Yeah, I don't remember that either.
And I like that, too, because it, like, you get that moment where it's like, oh, he's using his serious punch, just like he used at the end of the Demon King Piccolo arc, and, like, Popo just sidesteps it and swats him down.
Yeah.
That's a pretty good, like, oh, you're on a different level now.
Absolutely.
When Tao Pai Pai appears, it felt to me, I don't know about you, felt like there's like less mystery around it. There's less build up. There's less pomp and circumstance around it. It's like Chaozu lost. Who did it? Oh, me. Tao Pai Pai.
And then I think that's the first. It's Tien and Tao is the first match of the semifinals, right?
It is.
So it's almost like, aha! I beat Chaozu, and then Tien's like, I'm gonna kick your butt.
Yeah.
And then Tao Pai Pai's gone.
Difference in naming. Chi-Chi is name withheld by request versus anonymous. And then, like a quick note here. In the original Japanese, the character that becomes outed as Kami, the man.
Yeah.
In the original Japanese, in the anime, he's Hiro, and it's Hiro.
Mm-hmm.
That's the English translation of the anime. In the manga, and that's both the manga translation and the original Japanese, and in the Japanese anime, he's Shen.
Yeah.
And there's like even a part where that's how Goku figures it out, because Shen has like one of the, like, it's a linguist thing. It's like Shen has one of the radicals of Kami in it, and that's kind of how Goku figures it out.
Yeah.
In the English anime, they couldn't name that character Shen because they had already made the decision 50 episodes earlier to call the crane hermit Master Shen.
Oh.
And so they had to come up with some other name for him, and they went with Hero because he's a heroic character.
Doesn't have the same punch.
It doesn't. But yes, that's if you were watching the anime and wondering, oh, why they keep calling him Hero? They're calling him Shen. It's like a weird. They made a poor choice 50 episodes earlier in the name for the crane hermit. If I recall in the anime, Tien like breaks Tao Pai Pai's sword hand.
Mm-hmm.
But and then that's when he goes, oh, don't worry, I got the super Dodonpa. In the manga, he just switches to the super Dodonpa of his own accord. Tien doesn't break it.
Yeah.
And then the last little note I had is at the beginning of chapter 184, when Goku and Piccolo Jr. are locking hands, it has that feel of, if you've ever watched like a wrestling match, like especially, I feel like this happened in 90s wrestling more so than modern day wrestling. It's that like test of strength kind of move where they would put their hands up in the air and they'd grab their hands and they'd try to wrench their strength against each other.
Mm-hmm.
And then like the bad guy would always like kick the good guy in his crotch or something.
Or like kick him in the leg to get him to fall over or something.
Yeah. Yeah. That just like that had that exact feel to me. And knowing that Toriyama has included some references to pro wrestling and stuff, it's probably a thing that he picked up on from that, I would think.
Nice. I got a couple notes here on chapter covers and some of the artwork for them. Chapter 163 originally had a different cover. If you search for the chapter or read along with the manga, you'll see the cover is Goku in front of Kami's temple, and then in the corner, there's a Goku in boxers. The original cover had an RC car and this image of Goku along with a lot of text. And the text basically detailed a contest running where readers could design a gi for this underwear-clad Goku to wear, and the winner would get a prize. There was a manga running around about this car where the driver and his team of what they call Dash Warriors competed in races across Japan. And this was like a crossover promotion that I guess Shonen Jump was doing. In future reprints after that initial issue, the contest was no longer running, obviously, so they altered the cover, and the winning design of that contest is on the cover of chapter 173.
And that's basically like, I remember that the cover to that chapter is, it's like Goku's gi, but there's just like, if you think about where Goku's gi has orange and blue, there's just a lot more opportunity for blue on it. If you go and look up the cover for chapter 173, there's more blue on the shoulders and then like on the sides of the thighs, essentially. It's kind of neat.
Just a fun reinterpretation, right?
Yeah.
Chapters 165, 166, and 167 have covers that sort of tell a story of their own. In chapter 165, we see the five warriors we know, Goku, Yamcha, Krillin, Tien, and Chaozu, as they are before the time skip, as they remember each other, essentially. Chapter 166 just shows the gates to the Tenkaichi Budokai. This is kind of representative of the time skip itself, the tournament being set to begin. And then chapter 167 shows these five warriors as they are now and like their different get-ups and showing that they have changed over this time skip. Chapter 171 shows Goku and Chi-Chi in their wedding garb. For Toriyama, this is the only time he ever shows anything really depicting their marriage. It's in the anime, obviously. The last episode we did the whole filler arc leading up to their wedding. But this is the only hint of it in the manga ever. Remember, Toriyama doesn't really care about love stories. It's Torishima who does. So Toriyama kind of like does this to appease his editor. but he never devotes any manga pages to their wedding, just sort of purely out of defiance.
Based. I love that. And that does it for this arc. That does it for Dragon Ball. I think we're going to do more of a Dragon Ball retrospective. I don't know about next, but in the relative near future. I have some ideas I would like to potentially, we'll see what happens, and do like a whole Dragon Ball retrospective. Talk about our favorite arcs, how we would rank them, favorite moments from the original Dragon Ball, etc. etc. But for this arc, any last thoughts? How would you rank it? How would you rank the Piccolo Jr. / 23rd Tenkaichi Budokai out of 7 Dragon Balls?
Out of 7, I'd give it a solid 6 minimum, and it kind of gets to 7 stars for me.
Yeah,
I think it's just overall indicative of like, this is what Dragon Ball is for the most part. And if you can get down with this, then you will have no problem with anything else this series throws at you.
To me, Demon King Piccolo into Piccolo Jr. If you read those 2 arcs, that will give you a complete encapsulation of the best of Dragon Ball. And you might prefer something else more. I still think Cell might be my favorite thing in all of Dragon Ball. Might be. You might have different preferences, but if you read Demon King Piccolo and Piccolo Jr., you've got a good idea of like, yeah, everything that Dragon Ball is. And I would give this a 7 out of 7. I'm not afraid. And yes, some of this, like with any long running thing, some of its highest moments are only going to really hit you if you followed from the beginning, right? Like,
yeah,
a bunch of the stuff with Krillin and how Goku like finally wins the Tenkaichi Budokai and stuff like that. Only going to hit you if you've followed along the whole way. But
yeah, honestly, that's an excellent point.
But this is where I'm going to sneak in my tokusatsu reference for this episode.
Ah, yes, there's always one.
I've become a big fan of Ultraman over the years. Wasn't always. I had, for a long time, only ever seen the original show and parts of Ultra 7, and kind of dismissed Ultraman as being, and I still think that this phrase is kind of accurate, it is what people think of when they think of Godzilla. Meaning, you can see a lot of the like gaps on the suits. You can see a lot of the shoddy construction of the buildings. It is rough around the edges. And I still think that's pretty accurate. But, you know, when you could contextualize it and be like, hey, this is made for TV in the 60s and for children, as opposed to like being a theatrically produced thing, more understandable. You get a little bit of context. But eventually I was like, well, I want to see more Ultraman. Everyone who likes Godzilla likes Ultraman. Let me see more of it. One of the first things I saw was a movie called like The Superior Ultra 8 Brothers. And it's a movie where eventually, at the end of the movie, Ultraman and Ultraman Ace and Ultraman Leo, like all the Showa Ultramen, and they're played by like a lot of the original actors, all get together and have a big moment, and they all like unite to fight the villain.
Mm-hmm.
If you've been watching Ultraman along, you're like, oh, that's so cool that they got all those guys back. If you haven't, you still kind of get that feeling.
Yeah. This is a very unique moment in the series type thing.
You still kind of understand that, oh, there's something going on here. And if you like that movie and then you go back and watch that other stuff, you're like, oh, that's what that was.
Mm-hmm.
If you like this Piccolo Jr. arc and then you go back, you're like, oh, that's who Krillin is. Oh, that's why Yajirobe's important and all this, right? Like,
yeah, no, I get what you're saying. It's an arc in the story that actually makes everything that came before it even better.
Yes. Yeah. So yeah, it's great stuff. I'm not afraid to give it that 7 out of 7.
It's a damn good story arc.
It is. I would not shame anyone who says this is their favorite in all of Dragon Ball.
It's definitely that for me. That's for sure.
Oh yeah?
Yeah, this is my favorite arc in Dragon Ball.
See, I still think I might like Cell the best.
Cell's good. Don't get me wrong. That's not like saying every other arc is trash. It's just like, man, this for me, this is just, it hits all the right notes.
But yeah, that's the Piccolo Jr. arc. This is season 3, episode I think 19.
17? Or is it?
I don't know, 17, 19. It's somewhere around there. We are quite a ways into season 3. So we've done more than 2.5 years on Dragon Ball.
And we just finished original Dragon Ball.
Right.
Which is probably one of the shorter sections.
It'll be very interesting though. Again, from now on, from this point on, we have no more scholarly Dragon Ball to work with. and everything that we talk about from this point on is going to be more akin to our filler episode discussions, in that we're going to be doing a lot of the quote unquote research, Google, ourselves, and saying, all right, given what we know, what do we think about this? So if you haven't liked us up to this point, hey, things are about to change.
If you have liked us up to this point, please stick with us.
It's going to be fun. It's along this whole way, doing this podcast has only made me just like the whole show and everything more.
Yeah.
I anticipate that continuing. I just anticipate continuing to further my appreciation for all of this.
Yeah, same here. I'm hoping that it just adds another level of depth. Just like doing this for the original Dragon Ball, like I have a much deeper appreciation for everything that went into making this compared to me just being some schlub sitting on a couch watching it.
Yeah. But before we get to any of that, before we get to Dragon Ball Z, I know we have a couple different episodes we're going to do. I'm going to tell you some of them. Well, we got our October episodes still. Mm-hmm. And I think this year for October, we haven't finalized it yet, but I think we're going to take a look at Sandland. This feels like a good year to do that.
Yeah, I agree with that.
With Toriyama having passed away, let's look at one of Toriyama's other creations. There's the movie, the anime, and the manga. I'm gonna check out all of them. If Bekinney, if you only have time to check out the anime, that's fine.
I'm gonna try and hit all of it if I can.
But that's my plan. That's our plan, is at least to get to Sandland. I don't know what movie commentary we're gonna do yet. I haven't decided that one yet. We like to do like a spotlight series in October, and we did Don Dracula, we did Halo. This year we're going to do Sandland, and we like to do a commentary. We did Godzilla 1985. We did Drunken Boxer. I'm not sure what we're going to do this year. Haven't decided yet, but
I will figure it out.
Also, we are going to do another Dragon Ball video games discussion. We're going to talk about all the video games, or we think we're going to talk about it. We haven't done the research yet, but we're going to talk about like the video games that were more Dragon Ball focused and less Dragon Ball Z focused. And then also, we like to do a spotlight episode every year. We did year 1, we did Toriyama. Year 2, we did Torishima. I think we are going to do a spotlight on Masako Nozawa. For people who listen to this show regularly and know that I generally listen to the dub, might be surprised by that, but I do my fair share listening to the subs, and I think she's fantastic, and we will talk a lot more about her.
I've been doing sub only for this entire run, and yeah, she's fantastic.
She's even more fantastic in Z.
Yeah.
When she does Goku and Gohan and Goten, and they at times couldn't do like changes of the reels so that they could edit her together, and she just on the fly changed and had conversations with herself.
That's cannot relate to that in any way whatsoever.
Go back and listen to our season 2 finale if you would like to have no context for what Bekinney just said.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Bekinney just said he's as good as Masako Nozawa.
I said no such thing. Only that it might be relatable. Maybe.
When your co-host asks you to voice 3 characters at once. So that's what we got going on for the rest of the year. And then we will, I'm not sure. I think we're probably going to do the Dead Zone movie before we jump into the show, too.
Yes. That's one of my favorites.
So we got
the choreography in that one alone is amazing.
We got a lot to get into before we ever touch proper Dragon Ball Z.
But stick with us, because it's coming. We promise.
Yeah, eventually.
Diagnostic is done, and we have a couple major electrical issues, but nothing that's needed for basic functionality.
Basic functionality is not enough. We don't know how long this mission will last, or where we'll wind up finding a planet capable and amenable to fixing our ship.
Well, then let's head back to the nearest Frieza planet and get some repairs made.
We're at least several days away from Frieza-controlled space, and you want to head back completely empty-handed? No new warriors, no Earth, not even a new planet conquered?
Okay. But then how are we going to fix the ship? Oh, I realized the answer before I even finished speaking.
That's right, recruit. Grab your toolkit and take a look at the ship's electrical panels.
Are they like outside or like within the engine's turbines or maybe behind some laser shield or something?
What kind of nonsense are you spouting? They're in an access panel at the rear of the bridge.
I still don't trust this situation.
Would you just get to work?
I still don't understand why it's always me doing the repairs, but since I have to, can you turn off some of the ancillary electrical systems? Like non-essential lighting, entertainment, hyperdrive, comms, while I'm rooting around inside the ship's wiring?
Sure thing. All set, recruit. And while Bekinney is getting to work, we'll take our leave of you here, listeners.
Just please, I'm begging you, only turn the equipment back on when I say to turn it back on.
Turn it back on? Okay. Hey, look. Everything came back on. Although that was suspiciously fast. Did Bekinney make the requisite repairs? Will we be able to continue our mission at 100% functionality? Find out next time and help us achieve our final forum.
Final Form is written and produced by Tom Gwelly. It is performed by Dan Kinney and Tom Gwelly. Our webmaster is Dan Kinney. Our theme music is provided by YouTube content creator GVG Kid. Want to learn more about the Dragon Ball universe, including concept art, behind-the-scenes interviews, and recommendations from Jelli and Bekinney? Connect with us on social media. Like us on Facebook. Follow us on Twitter at Final Forum Pod. Make sure to subscribe, rate, and review wherever you receive your podcasts. And of course, make sure to share it with your friends and family and help us spread the word of the glory of Lord Frieza. The Frieza Force thanks you for your listenership.